if they believe in Jenkins the way that you and I do, you don't need Jay Ivey.
The guy that I want to talk about is someone who has kept them on a roll the last 3 games, 2 of which they've played without Cade Cunningham, but all of which they have won. They're 7-0, as you mentioned, in their last 7 since we last talked about them. And that is Daniss Jenkins, who is not someone that I was familiar with. He was on a two-way with the team last year, did not play much. And I first became familiar with him in summer league, going up a really good summer league game, going up against Reed Shepherd, who I was more locked in on at the time. But Daniss Jenkins really was getting in Reed Shepherd's grill, forcing him to uh, commit turnovers or struggle to make passes. Shepard had some moments in those games too, but I really appreciated the feistiness that Jenkins had, and he didn't have a reputation as a shooter, but he's shooting it okay in summer league, and it showed some distribution ability. So I kept my eye on him some, and in the grand tradition of Nate's guys point guards, I wouldn't put him quite in this class yet of Scottie Pippen Jr. from 2 years ago, and then Ryan Rollins from last year. I don't think he's going to be. I consider those guys starter level of players at this point. I don't know that I would consider Daniss Jenkins someone who's going to be a starter because he doesn't quite have the level of athleticism and strength, I would say, that those guys have. Maybe not as good of a scorer inside the arc, but he's really been pretty interesting. So let's start with his defense because I think he's solid there. I thought his defense did decline a little bit because all of a sudden he basically went from having played 1 game over 10 minutes this season in a blowout against Cleveland to 3 games of 34 or more minutes in a row. But I thought he did pretty well against Tyrese Maxey in their win over Philly on Friday in the NBA Cup. He frustrated him, kept him out of the lane reasonably well, bothered him some from behind, but directed the ball, didn't make mistakes. And Maxey had a decent game, but certainly Jenkins, I would say, is in the upper half of defensive point guards, which he has to be because he's not in the upper half of offensive point guards. So his ability to get into the ball was impressive. And I think he also does a good job of just executing on screens where not a lot of contact is made, like because that's something that the Pistons deal with a lot, right? Duncan Robinson's man is going to come over to set the screen. They got to protect him. Daniss Jenkins, if the guard is setting the screen, he's just going to get over that screen, or he's going to go under if that's what the scheme calls for. And he's not, because most guards are not going to actually make contact on the
Mhm.
screen. They don't want to do that. They want to just cause confusion, slip out, or slip to the basket, or get the switch. And the Pistons don't give up the switch. So he does a good job of not kind of falling for these fake guard screens and getting over. I like that aspect of his play. And then as a help defender, I've enjoyed his stylings as well. He has 12 steals on the season in relatively limited minutes. Probably the best thing that he does as a help defender is tag the roll man or make plays on any kind of a pass into the lane. He could sneak up behind, get steals there. He'll peel off his man on occasion too, as his man runs away. He's not going to just robotically run away. He'll go and actually try to disrupt what's happening. So he's a feisty defender. Where I think the biggest surprise has been is his shooting. Danny, he's really been excellent there so far.
It's been impressive because Jenkins, so it's been both catch and shoot. He's over 50% on catch and shoot threes so far, but he's also over 50% on threes off the dribble. And Jenkins, not somebody that we really tracked in college, but he bounced, was at 3 different schools in college, and he only shot over 30% his last 2 years. So there's a question of what he's going to do, but it has looked good so far. He's been a pretty good free throw shooter throughout his collegiate career, and I believe he shot free throws reasonably well in the G League last year. He didn't take many of them, but it looks smoother, and it's been going in so far, and both of those things are important.
Yeah, he had that huge corner three against Washington that tied the game up late. And yeah, 55% from three, 4.6 attempts per 36. That's certainly not sustainable. Still not a huge volume. But if the defense is going to go way under, he feels comfortable taking that shot off the dribble. And he also has made shots as a spot up. In the first game that he really started getting real minutes, he played some next to Cade Cunningham, got the close, and that looked okay. So his shooting ability is number one. As small as he is, and because he's not an elite athlete getting to the basket, he's going to need to shoot it at least passably well to continue in this rotation role. And then the thing that was most impressed me as someone who was not familiar with this game is his distribution. It starts with his ability to get in the lane. He's got a little bit of a burst he can use to get by guys, but he's not that strong. His finishing, which we'll talk about a little bit, is just he's not going to go over the top of guys. Not strong enough to really knock guys out of the way, which is kind of the name of the game at this point. Like it's really hard for thin guys who can't jump extremely well and are not nuclear athletes to finish at the basket. That's not a new thing, but it's probably even more true now than it was maybe 10 years ago when actually I would say less physicality was allowed on drivers. But as a distributor, I've really liked what he's done. The pass that stood out to me the most, we talked about this on Friday. He attacked from the left wing, got under the basket, and then threw a pass 180 degrees over his head back to the left wing to Javante Green for a three-pointer. Having that is one of the hardest passes to throw in basketball, directly behind your momentum, and he threw it halfway across the court. That was really impressive. He's gotten a good pick and roll chemistry with Paul Reed the last few games as well. Reed had a big scoring game in this last stretch with Jalen Duren out. He's gotten the start, and Reed has pretty decent hands and can finish pretty well. Jenkins has done well looking for him. So I really liked what I've seen from him in that respect. He also was really comfortable throwing passes with his left hand. He had one really beautiful pass to the weak side on the right wing for a three in the last game that they played against Philly. So I that's the thing that stood out to me the most is he's not just one of these, sort of Javon Carter. Hey, if he makes shots and he's a pesky defender, maybe he can play next to your star. He actually is capable of running the team, I would say, at a backup point guard level from what we've seen so far.
It's going to be fascinating to see not only how this front office manages Jenkins' two-way status, but also how JB Bickerstaff manages it once Jaden Ivey comes back. Because part of the original conceit of Jaden Ivey on this team, in part due to necessity, was that he was going to be the starting two guard and the backup initiator. But if they believe in Jenkins the way that you and I do, you don't need Jaden Ivey to do the second of those things. So does that mean you play Ivy and Jenkins some anyway, and that you kind of balance it between the two? Does that mean that you just Jaden Ivey, congratulations, you could basically just play off Cade Cunningham, but you're a starter or closer, all that? And we'll hopefully get to see the Pistons healthy enough to actually answer this question, but it might take some time.
Yeah, certainly the fact that they've been able to put these wins in the can, though, has been impressive given how many guys have been out, and they've just continued to bring in additional guys. I think Chaz Lanier has given them some reasonable play. Karis LeVert at least has been available, but it's telling in some respects that Jenkins has been getting the start over Karis LeVert these last two games. I think telling that Karis LeVert probably just can't play that many minutes as a point guard, but also that Jenkins has been really effective. Now, am I going to pencil him in for, hey, maybe he's a upper end backup point guard who might even close sometimes, who could be what Dennis Schroeder was to them last year? He kind of actually has a somewhat similar game history. He doesn't have that level of quickness or experience, obviously, but he's shooting it better. Dennis Schroeder who just lost his starting job in Sacramento, by the way. So it's not looking like losing Schroeder was going to be a big issue for Detroit. So, but
Well,
this will be, yeah, good.
Well, briefly, you were talking about Sacramento and the issues for Detroit. One thing to monitor is that the Pistons, after claiming Isaac Jones from the Kings off of waivers, they actually have 15 players now. Dennis Jenkins is a higher priority. They could trade somebody. They could just cut Isaac Jones. I don't think that would be that big of a deal. But it's also this question we run into this a lot now with these two-way guys. Does Jenkins get the latitude? Like, does he get enough confidence with this to be like, hey, I want you to straight convert me, and we're not going to figure out a longer term deal? Do they have some sort of understanding? But this is Jenkins' second year with the franchise. This isn't just a guy they picked up off the scrap heap this year, and you're seeing what he can do. And we've seen some awkward negotiations in the space. We've seen some very smooth ones that we thought could have been awkward. So it remains to be seen.
Yeah, I imagine he's headed for some kind of a minimum contract. It basically doesn't matter how well you play on the two-way, you just end up signing some basically the contract that you would have signed if you were a second rounder anyway. So maybe someday someone will break that and actually get a real two-way offer sheet. But there seems to be this weird mutual non-aggression pact, uh, where we did see the Folly Dante two-way offer sheet when the Rockets like literally couldn't match it, and Cleveland went after Ty Jerome, who I think Golden State might have preferred to keep, and we saw that the Tyson Wallace one in the very early days of two-way contracts. But overall, it seems like no matter how well, I mean, AJ Mitchell was on one too, but a lot of these seem like they're just kind of worked out in advance. Where say, hey, a two-way guy has no leverage. If you sign my guy to a two-way, yes, I will play ball, and you can get him on basically a second round exception type of contract. I think that's assumed in most of these cases. So yeah, really exciting though to see a new player emerge like this, and keep a good team afloat, and hopefully that he can continue to at least be in a rotation role once everyone is healthy.